Hello and welcome. I would like to take a moment and explain some features of handguns and maybe explain the different terminologies and concepts when it comes to handguns. Maybe for people that are just getting started, making their first purchase, perhaps buying a gun to keep at home for protection, maybe to carry on them concealed. I remember when I first started some 26, 27 years ago with handguns, there were many mistakes I made. Guns I bought that really didn't end up doing what I wanted. And as a result, I bought a lot of guns and sold a lot of guns, just getting rid of them because they weren't working for me. And I'd like to help minimize that as much as I can for others that are just getting started. So what I've done here is I've selected a couple of handguns that I carry on me pretty much 99% of the time. I either have this gun or this gun on me. I'm very confident in both of them. And while I don't want this to be a gun review, I don't want this to be so much about my pistol or my revolver, I do want to cover the basic features of what a revolver is, what a pistol is, and what and how they do what they do. And then that will perhaps help with that initial choice of making our purchase when we go out and successfully buy a gun. That will do what we want. So let's start off with the revolver, and we'll work our way up to the pistol later. I'm going to get that out of the way for now so we can concentrate on the revolver. And let me sort of center this for us here, and I'll zoom in just a little bit. Okay, here we go. All right, let me start off by covering the two basic rules that I always teach and explain to everybody. All guns, regardless of manufacturer and design, have one safety. They all share one common safety, and that is this. If I don't place my finger on that trigger and pull it, providing the gun is in good mechanical condition and it's in good shape, the gun should not fire. So I will avoid that accidental fire, accidental discharge. So this is rule one. This finger does not go on that trigger till I'm ready to fire it. This applies to all guns. Rifles, shotguns, pistols, revolvers, they all will enjoy that benefit of me not putting my finger on that trigger. Rule number two is all guns are loaded. This is an assumption that we all must make. Even if I hand you the gun and tell you it's not loaded, you must make sure to check it yourself. Then and only then can you be sure that the gun is not loaded. If I pick this gun up and accidentally pull this trigger and there's a bullet in there or the cartridge in there and it fires, there's no way I can recall that. Whether I meant to fire it or not, at that point it's too late. That bullet's going to go and hit something. So I must unload this gun before I handle it so that I can be safe. In the case of most revolvers, there's going to be some sort of a device here or here, either a button that I would push in or a slider up or down or forward that will release the cylinder to come open. That's holding the cartridges that produce the bullet that's going to be fired. So I'm going to push this forward, swing the cylinder out, and it'll be just hanging there, and there's the cartridges. In this case, 5 of them. If the gun is in good mechanical condition, well maintained, kept clean, the mere tipping of the barrel should result in the cartridges falling out. If they don't, there is a plunger here that forces those cartridges to be free of the cylinder so they can fall out. So doing this, and as is the case, here's the 5 cartridges. Now that the cylinder is empty, I can safely handle and manipulate this gun. Now let's start off by looking at what this is. This is a double action revolver. It has a barrel that's firmly affixed to the frame of the gun, in which resides a cylinder that holds the cartridges like you just saw, and each time the hammer is pulled back, the cylinder will revolve up to bring the next cartridge and line it with the barrel so it can be fired out of the barrel. Hence the name revolver. The cylinder revolves, so this name is revolver. Now, let me show you something. This is a typical handgun cartridge. It has a bullet here that when fired will go out and fly and propel out of the barrel. This is the casing that holds the charge, the powder, and on the back of the casing you'll see that primer, that circle. That primer is what the firing pin will strike, like this. And when it strikes it, it produces a small spark that ignites the powder that's in this casing, and that expansion of those gases provide the propulsion that launches this bullet out and through the barrel to hit whatever the gun is aimed at. Now, the way this works is, since it's a double action revolver, it'll do both. I'm going to show you the single action first and then the double action. Single action would be a case of a revolver that has to be cocked by hand. In other words, the hammer is pulled back and put in ready position like this. At this point, it's waiting for the trigger to release it so they can fall, forcing the firing pin into the back of the cartridge, like we explained, the primer, then the powder, then the bullet, and then the bullet flying out of the barrel. Now, all the time, whenever we're handling a gun, I remember the rule with the finger. We keep our finger on the frame, away from the trigger well, until we're ready to fire it. So we hold the gun like this. Nothing's touching the trigger till I'm ready to fire it. See? Now, since I know this gun is empty, I checked it and it was empty. I'm going to demonstrate how this gun is fired. Now that the hammer is cocked back in a single action mode, I will reach in and press the trigger and allow the hammer to fall, in which case then the gun would have fired. Now again, a single action, I have to cock the hammer back, leave it in ready position, and then the trigger will release it. There's only one way this gun is going to fire, by this one single action of the trigger pulling back and the hammer falling, hence the name single action. Now in the case of a double action revolver, the pulling of the trigger back causes the hammer to come all the way back and then drop, again forcing the firing pin, cartridge, ignition, bullet flying. So I will demonstrate this also now. If I pull the trigger back, you notice the hammer's moving back. It'll go all the way back, and then when it's ready, it'll fall. This is the second way this gun can be fired. I can cock it and then pull the trigger, or I can just simply pull the trigger. Two actions, hence double action, the name double action. Now this principle of the single action or double action would apply also to pistols. All handguns that are single action basically have a hammer of some type that has to be cocked and then fired, or a double action, the trigger pulling back and the hammer firing. Okay? Now, having covered that, we're going to move on to the pistol. Again, this is the cylinder that holds the cartridges that revolves, hence the name revolver. Okay, this is a pistol. The noticeable difference is that this gun, this firearm, does not have a cylinder that revolves with the cartridges. The cartridges are fed into the chamber, this portion of the barrel, and they go out of the barrel. The bullets or the cartridges are kept in the magazine. Again, I'm picking up a gun, so I'm going to assume that it's loaded. So I will drop the magazine by using this magazine release. It is loaded. And there's one also in the chamber. I always keep my guns that way, fully loaded. So at this point I will again keep my finger off the trigger, not onto the trigger, on the frame. I will grasp the slide like such and pull all the way back, and that will expel the cartridge that was in the chamber. Okay, now that we have taken the magazine out and we have cleared the chamber, we know the gun is empty. Okay, so now we can manipulate and handle it. Again, in the case of the pistol, we'll notice that it has a hammer, a trigger. This is the slide of the gun. This is the frame of the gun, and this is the grip. This is the magazine release. In this particular pistol, there is a slide stop and a decocker, and we'll discuss those in a moment. This gun is double action also, and what that means, the same thing as it did with the revolver. The hammer can be cocked back by hand, manually, and then the trigger pulled back will allow the hammer to drop. Or, in the case of a double action fire operation, the hammer can be pulled back by the trigger and then allowed to drop. So it'll work in two ways. The hammer, cocking the hammer back and dropping it, or us by hand cocking the hammer and then pulling the trigger. Now the slide stop on this gun and the decocker serve the purpose of holding the slide open. It just simply, let me zoom in just a little bit for us here. Okay, it's a lever that is forced up by the empty magazine to hold the slide back. If we look at the magazine, this red part of the magazine, it's called the follower. As these bullets get loaded into the magazine and work their way down into the magazine, the follower is pressed further down, down, down. It's sitting below the last bullet, and as the bullets come out, the follower will follow the bullets, hence the name follower. It'll rise to the top after it's empty. And if you'll notice, there's a notch cut right here. This notch is what engages the slide stop on a pistol. So when it reaches empty and the follower is all the way up, it forces this slide stop up to catch this little notch in the slide that's cut, for this to catch it and hold the slide open. So during normal operations, normal firing of the gun, when the magazine is empty, the slide will lock back like this, so we can at that point drop the magazine and load it with a full one and drop the slide and continue. Now on an empty gun without any bullets in it, it's probably not a very good idea to repeatedly drop the slide. In other words, push this down and allow it to fall forward, because there's a recoil spring in here that's compressed right now, and when I release the slide, it's going to expand again and force the slide to come home and close. It's basically metal slamming against metal. While don't be alarmed, it's not going to hurt anything. It is something that we probably don't want to do for no reason, just to hear it slam, because it is metal slamming against metal, and things eventually wear out. Now, don't alarm yourself. During normal operation of the gun, it's going to do exactly what that, and it's supposed to do that, because when the magazine has bullets in it, and as the slide moves back and forth, if you picture it like this, as the slide's moving back and forth, every time it's coming back, it will slide a bullet a cartridge out of here and into the chamber, and that stripping of a round out of the magazine will act as a shock absorber, so it'll slow the slide down ever so slightly, so it's not a full slam, and it's going to do exactly what it's supposed to do, and it'll work perfectly fine. So during the normal operation of a gun, you want to allow that to happen. But since this gun is empty, there's no bullet in it, there's no cartridge in it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the slide back here to overcome this force of the spring expanding, and when I release this slide stop, I'll slowly close the slide like that. It just makes for better longevity. It keeps things from hitting each other that don't need to be. Now again, it is after the first shot, the slide goes back and throws out the empty, takes a bullet, puts it in the chamber, and comes home again. The hammer will be left back in the cocked position, ready for the trigger to release it. So really, the concept of single action, double action mostly deals with the first shot, because after that, you're going to be in a single action mode anyway, because the hammer's back and you're going to be releasing it with a trigger. Now, the decocker, as is on this gun, and some guns have, some guns don't, serves the purpose of what happens if the hammer is back cocked and I decide that I don't want to shoot it. Well, I don't have to take a chance on lowering the hammer by hand and having the gun go off. The decocker will simply allow the hammer to drop without the gun going off. It has a block in there that keeps the hammer from hitting the firing pin, and that simply lets me release it and put it in standby mode, as it were. Now, the significance to a single action and double action is that when the gun is holstered and you draw it to present it and perhaps fire it, one of two things must happen. Either the hammer has to be cocked by hand, as is the case with single action pistols, the most infamous one perhaps being the 1911, as there's many other guns, but a lot of people are aware of that, familiar with that. You have to bring it up and have the hammer cocked back so they can be fired. Again, finger off the trigger. Now, to not have to stop for that excessive action, most people will do what's known as cocked and locked. They cock the hammer and put the gun on safe, on lock. Now the gun can't be fired. So when the gun is presented, you will drop the safety and fire the gun. It's a fluid enough motion and quite workable and in the case of a single action pistol where there's no choice, it's not a double action gun, one must do it that way. That would probably be the best way to do it. Have the gun be cocked and on safe. So we'll come up, safety off, gun fires. And in the case of a double action, of course, you really in a sense don't have to do that. And this is why I chose this pistol and that revolver for my daily carry, because they're double action. I don't have to have a conscious mind in a moment of panic to remember to take the gun off safety or on safety. I simply pull it, present it, and pull the trigger and let it fire. And that's, to me, is the big advantage of a double action pistol over a single action pistol. The disadvantage is that the trigger pull is much harder and much heavier and nowhere near as crisp as a single action trigger pull of a 1911 or a single action pistol. Generally they will have a much better trigger pull because there's much less movement here. Just the bare touching of the and mere small movement of the trigger will allow the gun to be fired. Everyday carry, I prefer a double action because I don't have to worry about whether the gun is locked, cocked and locked, whether it's on half cock, whether it's not cocked and I have to cock it. I simply pull it and squeeze the trigger. The same thing can be said about the revolver. I simply, let me check, make sure it's empty. I simply pull the gun and squeeze it. I don't have to cock it, I don't have to do anything, just bam. Same thing here. I pull the gun, present it, fire it. To me, that is the big advantage of a double action over a single action. Many will still preach, and it's not a bad idea, to keep the gun on safety. So that when you come up, you still have to have that presence of mind and good practice of taking it off safety and then firing it. But as long as it's a double action pistol and it's in this resting position, it is perfectly safe to carry it this way. In fact, on some guns you have the added luxury of a half cock, which is the hammer partially back, and you'll hear a click. It's in a locked position. It's literally not going to move forward. The way the sear engages it, you could take a hammer and beat that and it won't fire. I'll demonstrate that here. Right there. At this point, this gun, there is no way this hammer is ever going to meet that firing pin. and it will not fire. So to me, this is how I carry my double action pistol. Safety off, gun on half safe, on half cocked, and when I'm ready to shoot it, I just merely pull the trigger and it's ready to go. And after that first shot, of course, like we were discussing, when the slide comes back, I want you to just see if you can watch for this. When I pull this back, the hammer is going to come back and get locked into ready position. And now the trigger is what releases it. So that to me is the advantage of a double action pistol. Briefly, I will explain these two particular guns. This is a Taurus PT945. It is in a 45 caliber. It has a 8-shot magazine capacity, and I'll carry one in the chamber. That's 9, and I always have my extra magazine. So that gives me a total of 17 shots. And I am very confident in being able to defend myself with 17 rounds. The ammunition of choice, which is very important in my opinion, regardless of what gun you use, purchase good quality defensive ammunition. It makes a big difference. This particular cartridge, let me show it to you, is the Federal Guard Dog. It looks like a full metal jacket bullet, but in reality it's not. Inside it has a rubber compound that when it meets any sort of a objective, when it hits something, it flattens out and it becomes almost like the shape of a mushroom, like a button, and it expands very nicely. In case being fired at, say, sheetrock, walls, it's been tested, and it very nicely flattens out and it gets much larger. So it has much less of an opportunity to over penetrate. It will still go through the wall, it will still go through sheetrock and go into the next room, but much slower, and should it hit target, it will expand very nicely, becomes much larger as it's traveling. I am of the belief that a big bullet will always do more damage than a small bullet. Granted, the smaller bullet might be traveling faster and might mathematically and theoretically develop more kinetic power. When it comes to causing damage and causing tissue damage and organ failure, a bigger path of the bullet, more tissue destruction, is always going to be more effective. In the case of this pistol, I carry this ammunition or the Hydroshock, and this is by far my weapon, my choice currently. It is 165 grains, traveling at about 1100 feet per second, which translates to about 400 kilo foot-pounds of energy. And that's very sufficient when it comes to self-defense. It is more than capable of delivering a strong blow. And in the case of the revolver, it is a, let me zoom out just a little bit. It is a let me get these out of the way. Okay, this is the Charter Arms Bulldog Pup. It's a 44 special, 5 shots, and again we discussed that it's a double action revolver. Has a slightly longer barrel than an average snub nose. It's I believe to be 2 3/4 inch, and it fires a 44 special cartridge. And let me give you a close-up of this. This is what loaded into a lot of the Spear Gold Dot ammunition. It is a very ominous hollow point, and while the short barrel of the revolver does not allow for development a lot of speed, because much of the powder and power being produced by that will be wasted at the short end of this barrel. You'll see a big muzzle blast. The bullet is heavy enough and enough of a hollow point to where it will expand quite nicely. This is very powerful. This is by far more, if not the same power as the 45. It is a much larger cartridge, and if this was to be fired out of a pistol where all that propulsion wasn't wasted out of the cylinder to barrel gap and out of the end of the short barrel, this obviously would develop much more power than this. But as it is, both of these are fairly equivalent in the 400 foot-pounds. Very effective when it comes to effectively stop the threat. And basically those are my choices, and I hope you'll find it of some use. If you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to post them at the bottom. If you like this video, I would appreciate it if you press the like button. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will have more videos. I will share some more information with you all, and it's been very nice talking with you and bringing you this information. I hope that you will be able to put it to some good use. Thank you for watching, and again, have a good day. Goodbye.